We're going to do some more with scientific notation. And let's look at this. Calculate and the product below and give your answer in scientific notation. Okay, so when we're multiplying scientific notation, remember multiplication, it doesn't actually matter what order we're doing things in. We can multiply the 0.05 times the 10 to the negative 2 and then multiply by the 1 by 0.3. It doesn't matter. Generally we go left to right, but it really doesn't matter for multiplication. And so what we're going to do, because we want to keep this in scientific notation, we're going to multiply the 1.3 times 0.05 or 0.05, which then we'll get to the other part. But so we have, make that 1.30. 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 3 is 15, carry the 1, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6, 0 times 0 is 0, 0, 0, and we could do more zeros, but let's not. And so we get 650. Okay, but we didn't really get 650 because we have 4 decimals that we need to move. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's 0.0650, and then we can add in our 10 to the negative 2, right? And that would be great, and that is the equivalent to that. The problem is this isn't in scientific notation because that is not between 1 and 9. And we need it to be between 1 and 9. And so for us to make it between 1 and 9, we're going to move 1 2 places and make this 6.50. And because we moved 2 places and it was already times 10 to the negative 2, we need to make it times 10 to the negative 4. Right? So 10 to the negative 4 would give me the 0.0650 times 10 to the negative 2, and then moved out 2 more decimal places. Hopefully that makes sense. If we were to write this out in standard form, right, it would be 0.000650. And that's what would happen if we multiplied all those together. And actually you can test this on a calculator. If you multiply 1.3 times 0.05, then divide it by 100, which is the same thing as multiplying by 10 to the negative 2. But you can also do that, times 10 to the negative 2. Put that in your calculator, you should get 0.000650, which when we convert to this, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 moves, so it's 6.50 times 10 to the negative 4. Alright, this one's fun too. Again, when we multiply and divide, it doesn't matter which order, so we're going to leave that 10 to the negative 2 for later, and we're just going to do 0.00065 divided by 5. Well, 5 can't go into that, so we're automatically going into a decimal. It goes into 0, 0 times, 0, 0 times, 0, 0 times, 6 one time, that gives me a 5. 6 minus 5 is 1, that brings down a 5.00013. Okay, so 0.00013, and we're still need to divide by that 10 to the negative 2. Well, remember our rules for exponents. If we have a negative exponent in the denominator, it's the same thing as a positive exponent in the numerator. So that's 0.0003, need a 1 in there, 13 times 10 to the second power. Well, let's just go ahead and do that real quick, because that moves our decimal place 2 points over, right? And so that leaves us with 0.013. But that's still not in scientific notation because that's not between 1 and 9, right? And that's where we need it, is between 1 and 9. So our number that's between 1 and 9 would be 1.3. So this is going to be 1.3 times 10, and we had to move it to make it smaller to the negative 2, right? So if we're raising it to the negative 2, that means if we were to come back, we'd move it twice this way, and then we have 0.01, right? Once to get to the other side of the 1, once to get a 0, 0.013 time is our answer. So 1.3 times 10 to the negative 2. Okay, so just to simplify this right off the bat, 10 to the 0, that's a 1. Okay, so we're not worried about that. This whole parenthesis just becomes an 8.0. Again, we're going to choose our powers of 10. We're going to multiply those later. And we're going to do 8.0 times 3.3. And 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 8 is 24. And we have 2 decimals, so that's 2640, 26.4. Okay, so we have 26.4. And let's do it this way this time. Let's convert this to scientific notation this time. So this is not between 1 and 9. We need it to be between 1 and 9. And so to make it between 1 and 9, it's going to be a 2.64, which means we had to times 10 to the, because we had to move the decimal once that way, so 10 to the first power, right? 2.64, if we multiply that by 10, that becomes 26.4. Okay, so now let's multiply times 10 to the negative 4, and we have 10 to the 1 times 10 to the negative 4. So that's 2.64 times 10. What? Hold on a second. Times 10 to the 1 minus 4, which is a negative 3. So 2.64 times 10 to the negative 3. And that should be our answer. Okay, one more. Again, we have a 10 to the 0, so that just becomes a 1, so we don't have to worry about that. 1.64 divided by 2. We're going to, again, leave our 10 squared out of this for a little while. So 1.64 divided by 2, which there's a handy calculator if you wanted to use that. 2 doesn't go into 1, 0. 2 goes into 16 8 times. That's actually 16. So it's going to bring down a 4. 2 goes into 4 2 times. So 0.82. Okay, so we have 0.82 divided by 10 squared. Let's get this top number into scientific notation first. So that's going to be 8.2 times 10 to the something. Because we're going from 8.2 to something smaller, it's going to be a negative exponent, and it's just negative 1. And then we can divide by our 10 to the negative 2. Sorry, 10 to the 2. Okay, so then we have 8.2 times 10 to the negative 1, and when we divide, we're subtracting. When we divide, we're subtracting our exponent. So negative 1 minus 2, and that's 8.2 times 10 to the negative 3. Or 8.2 divided by 10 to the 3, but let's just, in scientific notation, you want the power of 10 on the same line. So 8.2, you don't want it in the denominator. 10 to the negative 3.